Good afternoon. My name is Tim Lynch. I'm your host of Legal Lines. Legal Lines is brought to you by the Massachusetts LGBTQ Bar Association, and we are live the third Wednesday of every month at 4 p.m. Our show today has my friend here, John, who comes from Uganda. John Abdallah Wombedi, did I pronounce it right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Is from Uganda. He's currently in the United States seeking asylum because, unfortunately, some anti-gay laws have been recently passed there. So we're going to discuss with John what it was like in Uganda before these laws, what was going on there, and unfortunately what has it been since these laws were passed. And if you'd like to call in with any questions, please feel free to do so. Our number here is 617-708-3290. So John, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Basically where you grew up and what kind of work you did for...
Thank you very much, Tim, for hosting me here tonight, and I'm so glad. I was born and raised in Uganda, and my parents were Christians, so I was raised as a Christian, and I went through my education, and I graduated with an equivalent of an associate degree in teaching, and also I went on to graduate with something similar in tours and travel. Growing up, life was interesting because we never really had too much problems like perhaps I would think today. As a gay man, I knew myself at an early age because I felt and I could see that how my body spoke to me when I saw another man was different when how my body spoke to me when I saw a woman. And I kept struggling with it, being that I had grown up in a family, in an environment where everybody knew my dad was in politics and my mom was a government servant. She was a midwife. So we heard about gay people. They spoke about gay people, but they were never condemned. They were never persecuted. No one went to touch their homes. They lived as part of the society, and some of them were appreciated as people of uniqueness, different people. And no one ever called them pedophiles, neither.
So, you were telling me earlier, you yourself formed an organization back in 2001 in Uganda.
Yes.
Okay, tell us a little about that.
Spectrum Uganda Initiatives was registered in 2004, but before its registration, we had already gone into organizing as gay men. And this was specifically because we had been in touch with one of the founder members of the organization who had told us or enlightened us more about the risks of same-sex or anal sex. So in the process, we carried out a research in Kampala, and we noticed that people were totally very ignorant about the situation or the risks of anal sex. And this happened in a way from the analysis that most people thought or perceived that anal sex was STD, STI free and also was HIV free.
So this organization was started out of healthcare concerns because people did not understand that you could get HIV, AIDS through gay sex, as well as heterosexual sex. You know, it's the same. You can get through any sexual conduct, you can get HIV.
Yes.
So you formed this organization. Was it solely for health, giving out health care information, or were there other reasons?
We were focusing on HIV/AIDS because at that time we know that there was a huge campaign going around the globe, and Uganda was on record and on track for, successfully speaking more on HIV. And at that time, we thought it was very important for us to have a gay organization that would address the health concerns of gay people in Uganda. And apart from that, we also thought there was need for us to know that as Ugandans, we had rights and we had the privilege to enjoy those rights like any other Ugandan without being discriminated based on our sexual orientation, and at the same time to receive protection from the state like any other citizen.
So, okay, so it's not only to bring awareness that people can get HIV through sex, be it homosexual sex or heterosexual sex, but it also was to bring about some awareness of what people's rights are.
Exactly.
And to advocate for them.
Exactly.
Okay, how would you go about doing that?
So what happened is when these organizations were formed, we managed to be able to reach out to the LGBTI community. And through that, we had workshops, we had safe spaces where we would gather. During events, social events, we always spoke more and advised people that there was need for them to go on and check for their HIV status and to use condoms. Unfortunately, there was a problem of lubricants because it was never there. More or less, people never even knew about lubricants, and we only got up to know about lubricants very much later. So it was quite a challenge, and over the so many years, there has been success.
There has been
success. We've been successful.
Oh, success, very successful, good.
Yeah, there have been success in a way that people now know that they need to use condoms and lubricants, not condoms with gel, or not condoms with petroleum jelly, or not condoms with, any other product.
Because that would break down the condom. So you were teaching people how safe practices.
Yeah.
And while you were doing this, was there any interference from anybody, the government or any other organization?
All this happened so well, and things started changing from 2009.
2009.
Yeah, when the religious fundamentalists came, the evangelicals came to Uganda from America, and then they started sowing hate and hate speeches among people, and the churches started going very open about criminalizing gay people and having them persecuted and condemned. And all this time we still were moving on successfully, but it all again worsened at the time when the bill that was introduced in 2009, the anti-homosexual bill, was signed into law in 2014, and everything went down.
So before we get to that, as I'd like to understand it, life in Uganda, you were openly gay, and people in general treated you with respect.
There was no problem. Because if I look at the Uganda I grew up before 2009, it was a good place. I lived happily, I was happy, because I would go to the bars. We never had really gay bars, but we had friendly bars. And no one would ever throw you out of a bar. There were once in a while where people were thrown out of bars, but of course, like for any other person, if you misbehave,
Sure.
you could, yeah. But the moment people knew you were gay, no one would attack you. It was, people wouldn't mind, which is totally different from what happens today.
So you know, if you told people you worked with, you were gay before all this change, you didn't have any fears of being fired or anything?
From my side, I know my first years at work, my bosses knew I was gay, but I was never fired from my work, because one, I was productive and I delivered. What I did was out of my work time, because that was my private life. Though a couple of times there were blackmails where people tried to come in at my workplace or to tell my boss about my sexuality, but they all never brought it up as a discussion to discuss about it with me.
So people went into your boss and told him you were gay?
Yeah.
And anything happened as a result?
It's blackmail. These were all results of blackmail.
Sure,
Yeah.
but if the fact that there could be blackmail means that there could be something bad happening if
Yes.
they found out you were gay.
I mean, in a situation like, it is one, either they want to fail you or they want to expose you. So by coming to my boss and telling my boss I'm gay, or I have men at my house, what do they expect? They expect to hear the next day that, oh, John has been fired from work.
Sure.
You know,
Sure. But that didn't happen.
it didn't happen. And perhaps I'm just among the lucky few who could have survived such a scenario in Uganda. I know most people have lost jobs because of that. Not just because of recent, but just because some people just believe that homosexuality is a curse.
Oh, okay. So all right, so before 2009, there was some prejudice beneath the surface, but you yourself were able to live your life, and you knew other people who, by and large, went about their business. There was no big uproar over people being gay. And then 2009, you said some American evangelicals, and as I recall my own reading in the papers, that's from Western Massachusetts. That's where these people came from, and they come to Uganda, and they stir up all sorts of things. Why don't you tell us about that? What was it like 2009 when these Americans come in from Massachusetts, of all places, into Uganda? What was it like?
I remember we got the information that there was going to be a workshop, and they had invited, the Family Life Network had invited all people in authority, teachers, policemen, religious leaders who were going to be there. It was a 3-day workshop. And we decided to send in a few people who were not very visible to go and understand what was happening. And the message there was that homosexuals have an agenda to recruit children from schools into homosexuality.
Okay. The group that you identified, the group that came over there, was the Family Network? What did you?
The Family Life Network
Family Life
invited.
Network. Okay, those are the people who went over there. The Family Life Network, who were they?
The Family Life Network in Uganda invited Scott Lively and his 2 other colleagues. And the message was like, homosexuality is a learned behavior or can be learned. Homosexuality can be cured. And homosexuals have an agenda to recruit children.
So, all right. So, who's Scott Lively? You mentioned certain people went, and you.
To me, I've not really even done much reading about Scott Lively because
Oh, but you mentioned him being there, and I just wondered who he was.
He's the leader of the Abiding Faith Ministries, I think. Abiding Faith Ministries.
Is he? All right.
Which is based in Massachusetts somewhere.
All right. So, and you mentioned that you said our organization, meaning your organization, sent a few people there.
Yes.
Which organization was that?
This was Spectrum Uganda,
Okay.
which is Sexual Minorities Uganda also had its members. It was basically a general meeting among the organizations, the LGBT organizations in Uganda.
And this is a nationwide, Ugandan-wide organization, Spectrum Uganda.
Spectrum Uganda is basically focused on Central Region,
Okay.
which around 4 or 5 districts in Uganda, yeah.
Is that the capital area?
The capital area is one of them, and the districts neighboring it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you sent people to this 3-day, what was it, a teach-in or something?
Workshop
convention.
or conference.
Okay, some sort of thing. And the purpose, the thing that they taught was that being gay is a learned behavior. Mm-hmm. I don't know where, it'd be interesting to see their work on that. And then the other thing was that
it has a cure.
it has a cure.
Yeah.
Yes, I assume that's that conversion therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, which has been ruled illegal in California and hopefully here in Massachusetts because of the tremendous harm, and we've had a show on this, tremendous harm that results from that, and it doesn't work. And then the third thing they taught is gay people recruit children.
Yes.
Okay,
They go into schools.
Go into schools.
Yeah, they're pedophiles.
Okay, so that's kind of like one of those old things that they've used here for many years as well.
And because the majority of Ugandans are Christians, and this way, because the majority of Ugandans are Christians, they kind of started to totally believe and accept, because this now became the message in churches. Every other church you more or less walked into was talking and condemning homosexuality and calling for the persecution of homosexuals.
So it started to grow in all the churches from the pulpits, this message.
Exactly. So it went out, it spread out, and even in homes. Homes, for the first time, I believe every home discussed. And homes discussed homosexuality for the first time.
And in a bad way. And in a bad way. I'm limited on time though, but I want to jump forward. So the law was introduced in 2009, passed in this year. What does it do?
It says abetting and promoting of homosexuality is criminalized. Aggravated homosexuality and is criminalized with the repeated offenders. It also criminalizes recruitment.
Recruitment of trying to go into schools and recruit people to be gay.
Yeah.
Okay. So at one point, the law put people to death for this. At one point, I don't know where in the legislative process, but people, if you were gay, you were put to death.
Earlier on, in 2009, when the bill was being introduced, it had this content. As they amended it, it only speaks of life in prison.
Life in prison. So that's
but to me, life in prison and death sentence
are one and the same in Uganda.
Exactly. It's just more of a tongue twist here and there. So,
was your organization able to fight this in any way?
We fought. We were involved because we spectrum, Uganda is part of the civil society coalition network on human rights and constitutional law, which was formed in 2009 to counter-react on the law. And we've been part of them ever since then. And that means we were involved in that. And after the law was passed, they filed in a petition to challenge the law.
Make it challenge it to say it's unconstitutional.
It's unconstitutional. Yeah.
Under the Ugandan constitution.
Exactly, right.
And sounds like that's in its early stages.
Yeah. We are yet to see or to hear back from when the session will begin on hearing on this. Yeah.
Wow. So aggravated homosexuality, I'm trying to understand what that even means. I mean, does it define it?
It's simply, we would say rape.
Rape. Well, I would think raping is illegal anyway, and one would hope anyway.